They left the alien girl outside to suffer only. The human knew where she could be saved. The night in the alien colony was colder than usual. The wind howled between the metal walls, carrying fine dust that stung the skin. Outside the main gates, on the hard, frozen ground, lay a young alien girl. Her skin was pale, almost glowing in the moonlight, but it had an unhealthy blue tint. Her clothes were thin, torn in places, and her breathing was slow. Her eyes were half open, staring at the sky as if she had already given up. The guards at the gate didn't care. They leaned on their rifles, talking and laughing. Occasionally, one of them would glance at the girl and smirk. She had been left there by her own people, abandoned like trash. No one dared to help her. The colony had rules, and one of those rules was simple: never aid an outcast. Outcasts were marked with a small black tattoo on the neck, a sign that they were no longer part of society. Helping them meant punishment. Daniel, a human trader, had arrived at the colony that afternoon. He had come to sell tools and small machines, hoping to earn enough to buy supplies for his next trip. He was tired, ready to rest for the night, when he noticed the girl lying by the gate. At first, he thought she might be dead, but then her fingers twitched, and a faint cloud of breath escaped her lips. Something in that small movement caught his attention. He walked closer. His boots crunched in the frozen dirt. The guards noticed and called out to him. "Leave her," one said with a mocking grin. "She's not worth it." Daniel stopped a few feet away, looking at the girl. Her lips were trembling, and her eyes slowly moved to meet his. There was no begging in her gaze, no hope, only pain, and a strange kind of pride. "What happened to her?" Daniel asked. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt anger growing. The guards laughed. "She's cursed," one replied. "Her family broke the laws, so she pays the price. We leave her here until the cold finishes her. By morning, she be gone." Daniel didn't like this answer. It wasn't the first time he'd seen cruelty in the outer colonies, but it always made his chest tighten. He looked at the girl again. She was breathing, but just barely. Her body was shivering violently. Now, the cold sinking deeper every minute. If he walked away, she would die before sunrise. He took a slow breath. The smart thing would be to ignore her. This wasn't his problem. Helping her would mean breaking their law. It could mean trouble with the guards, trouble with the colony, leaders, maybe even death. But Daniel had never been good at walking away when someone was in danger. The girl tried to speak. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Daniel knelt beside her. He could see frost forming at the edges of her hair. Her skin was icy to the touch. Her voice finally came, broken and weak. "It hurts," she whispered. Daniel felt something twist inside him. The guards behind him shifted. "Step away, human," one ordered. "She's nothing to you. Don't make her your problem." But Daniel's hands were already moving. He slid his arms under the girl's small frame, lifting her gently. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless, like a bird with broken wings. Her head rested against his chest, and he could feel the faint, rapid beat of her heart. "Put her down," the guard barked. His tone was sharp now, but Daniel kept walking toward the open road, beyond the gates. "I know a place," Daniel said over his shoulder. His voice was steady. "She can be saved." The guards exchanged looks. One reached for his weapon, but stopped. It wasn't worth shooting a traitor in front of the other colonists. Still, their voices followed him into the darkness. "You'll regret this, human," one called. The night air bit into Daniel's skin as he walked, but he kept his arms tight around the girl. Each step was heavy. The wind pushed against him, carrying the sounds of the colony fading behind. The girl's breathing was shallow, but she was still alive. That was all that mattered right now. The road ahead was empty. Only a thin trail lit by the cold light of the moon. Daniel knew time was running out. He also knew that if he didn't move fast, there would be no saving her. The colony might have given up on her, but he hadn't. Somewhere out there was a place they could reach before it was too late. Somewhere only he knew about. And tonight, He was willing to risk everything to get her there. Daniel kept walking into the darkness, his boots sinking into the frozen dirt with every step. The cold bit at his skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill radiating from the girl in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, and every now and then, he felt her body twitch as another shiver tried to escape. The night was silent, except for the faint hum of the colony's power shields far behind them. But Daniel knew silence like this was dangerous. Somewhere out there, in the barren land beyond the walls, people were watching. He had felt their eyes before, hidden shapes in the dark. Shadows that moved when you weren't looking. The girl's head rested against his chest, and for a moment, he wondered if she even understood who was carrying her. Her lips moved again, trying to form words, but no sound came. The road was nothing but a thin path between jagged rocks. The wind funneled through them, sending sharp gusts that made it harder to see. Daniel knew there was no way to take the main route to safety. The guards would follow if they thought he might actually save her, and the last thing he wanted was to give them that chance. He turned sharply off the path and began climbing over rough ground. The girl gave a soft, pained sound as his grip shifted, but she didn't resist. Daniel's breath came heavier now, his muscles working to carry her weight over uneven stones. Every step forward was slower than the last, and his mind kept going back to the stories his father used to tell, stories of hidden places in the wasteland. Places that could heal. Places that were never marked on any map. Behind him, the sound came, footsteps. Slow and deliberate, not trying to hide. Daniel didn't turn. He already knew who it was. The colony's enforcers had followed him, their deep voices cutting through. The wind, leave her, one of them called. You think you're saving her, but you're just killing yourself. Daniel didn't answer. He kept moving, his pace steady but determined. The footsteps grew closer, heavy boots crunching in the dirt. This is your last chance. Human, another voice said, put her down, walk away, and we forget this happened. Daniel's jaw tightened. He could feel the girl's weak heartbeat against his chest. He didn't know why he cared so much, but he knew if he left her here, she would be nothing but another cold body in the morning. Without warning, he broke into a run. His boots slammed against the ground, sending up small bursts of dust and frost. The girl's thin arms twitched against him, and he could feel the faintest warmth returning as his own body heat pressed into hers. The shouts behind him grew louder, but he didn't stop. The wasteland ahead was wide, empty, and lit only by the pale light of the moon. But Daniel knew where he was going, at least. He hoped he did. The land began to slope downward, the jagged rocks giving way to a steep drop. Somewhere below was the canyon he had been searching for, if he could reach it. The enforcers would have to choose between chasing him and risking the dangerous climb. He slid down the edge, his boots struggling to keep traction on the loose dirt. The girl's body was limp in his arms, and he adjusted his grip. His teeth clenched against the pain in his arms. A rock gave way under his boot, sending both of them sliding. Daniel hit the ground hard at the bottom, the impact sending a jolt through his body. He checked the girl quickly, still breathing, still alive. He looked back up, the enforcer's shadows peering over the cliff, but they didn't follow. Instead, one called down, "You'll regret this when you see what's in there." Then their shadows vanished from the edge. Daniel turned, the canyon stretching ahead into darkness. The air here was warmer, faint steam rising from cracks in the stone. He knew he was close to the place his father had told him about, a place the aliens feared, but humans never spoke of openly. He adjusted his hold on the girl and started deeper into the canyon, each step echoing off the walls. He didn't know what waited ahead, but he knew this: he was not turning back, not while she was still breathing in his arms. The canyon walls closed in around Daniel, towering above him like jagged black teeth. The faint warmth in the air felt unnatural, carrying a damp mineral scent that clung to his skin. The girl in his arms stirred faintly, her fingers curling weakly against his chest, as though she was holding on to something in a dream. Daniel's boots crunched over gravel, and every step seemed louder than it should have been. The place felt alive, listening. Somewhere far behind, a rock shifted. The sound was faint, but sharp enough to freeze him mid-step. He turned his head slowly, eyes scanning the shadows. The canyon entrance was hidden now by a bend, and if anyone was following, they were smart enough to stay out of sight. Daniel moved on, keeping his breathing steady. He didn't have time to play games with whoever might be watching. The air grew thicker as he went deeper, the walls sweating with moisture. A thin mist floated close to the ground, swirling around. His boots, the girl's breathing changed. It was faint, but more even now. The warmth of the canyon was already helping her, but Daniel knew it wouldn't be enough. Her body needed more than just heat. She needed a place where life could take root again, and he had only one chance to find it. His father had called it the heart of the earth, a hidden chamber where hot springs bubbled from deep within the planet. Minerals in the water were said to heal wounds, even pull someone back from the edge of death. But the stories also spoke of guardians, creatures that didn't take kindly to strangers. Daniel had always thought they were just myths, the kind of thing told to keep people from wandering into dangerous places. Tonight, he hoped the stories were wrong. A low sound rolled through the canyon, almost like a growl carried on the air. Daniel stopped, his grip tightening on the girl. The mist ahead of him shifted as though something large was moving through it. He took a step forward, his boots silent on the damp ground. Another sound came, this time from above, a scattering of pebbles raining down from the cliff walls. His instincts screamed that they were not alone. The girl's eyes opened for a brief second, cloudy but focused. She whispered something in her language, the words too soft for him to catch. Then she closed her eyes again, her breathing slow and fragile. Daniel pressed on, following the faint sound of running water. His heart pounded not from fear of what might be following, but from the fear that he might not make it in time. The mist thickened until he could barely see a few steps ahead. Then, without warning, the ground sloped sharply down into a hollow. Steam rose from several glowing pools, their surfaces reflecting the moonlight that trickled through cracks in the canyon roof. The heat was stronger here, wrapping around him like a heavy blanket. He stepped closer, the girl's body relaxing slightly in his arms, but the relief lasted only seconds. Out of the steam, shapes began to form, tall, lean figures with eyes that glowed faintly blue. They moved slowly, circling him, their bodies half hidden by the mist. Daniel stopped, keeping the girl close. He didn't raise his voice, but he spoke firmly. "I'm not here to harm her. I just need to save her." The figures didn't respond, they just watched, their glowing eyes shifting between him and the girl. Daniel stood still, waiting for them to make the next move. He didn't know if they understood him, but he could feel the tension in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. If they decided he was a threat, he wouldn't have a chance to fight back, not while carrying her. And yet, something in him refused to put her down, even if it meant facing whatever these things were. Daniel's breath fogged in the rising steam as the figures closed in, their movements slow but deliberate. They were unlike any creature he had seen, tall and narrow, their skin a smooth stone gray that shimmered faintly under the faint moonlight, filtering through the cracks above. Long, clawed hands swayed at their sides, and their glowing blue eyes never blinked. The air around them carried a strange hum, as if the canyon itself was vibrating with their presence. One stepped forward, tilting its head toward the girl in Daniel's arms. The hum grew louder, deeper, almost like the sound was inside his skull. The girl stirred again, her lips moving to form a word he didn't recognize. The moment the word left her mouth, the figure froze. Its eyes shifted from Daniel to her face, and for the first time, Daniel thought he saw something in those glowing orbs: recognition. The other figures stopped circling, their heads turned in unison toward the one in front. The hum in the air began to soften, replaced by a low, pulsing rhythm. It reminded Daniel of a heartbeat, slow and steady. The lead figure stepped closer, until it was only a few feet away. Daniel stood his ground, every muscle tense. He wasn't sure if this was a sign of welcome, or the last step before an attack. The creature raised one clawed hand and gestured toward the largest pool. Steam drifted from its surface in lazy curls, the water glowing faintly from minerals deep below. Daniel understood without words. They were offering the pool for the girl. He moved carefully, stepping toward the edge. The warmth radiating from it was so strong it made his skin prickle. Kneeling by the pool, Daniel lowered the girl until her body was half submerged in the shimmering water. She gasped softly at the sudden heat, her thin fingers clutching his arm before relaxing. The color in her skin began to shift, the blue tint fading slightly as the warmth seeped into her. For the first time since he had found her, her breathing sounded almost normal. Daniel looked up at the figures. They stood silently, watching every move he made. Their glowing eyes seemed less cold now, more curious. He realized they hadn't stopped him from entering this place. They could have ended his journey long before he reached the springs. Instead, they were letting him stay, letting her heal. But a thought gnawed at him. Why? If they were guardians of this place, why show kindness to a stranger carrying an outcast? Unless the girl wasn't who the colony had claimed she was. Unless there was something far more important about her survival. The girl's eyes opened fully now, and she looked straight at him. Her voice was still weak, but her words were clear. "They know me," she said. "They know my blood." Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the lead guardian stepped closer and lowered its head toward her. The hum returned, low and steady. Like the deep earth was speaking to them both. Daniel realized then that whatever came next, this place and these beings were the only reason she might live through the night. And if the guardians had accepted her, he had to trust that his fight to bring her here had been worth every step. The steam swirled thick around the water's edge, carrying a strange metallic scent that clung to Daniel's skin. The girl lay half submerged in the glowing pool, her eyes open now, no longer glassy with weakness. A faint warmth had returned to her face, but it was her gaze calm, yet heavy with meaning that unsettled him most. The guardians stood in a half circle, their glowing blue eyes locked on her. The lead one stepped forward, lowering itself until its knees touched the wet stone. It reached out one long, clawed finger and gently traced a line along the side of her neck, right over the small black tattoo that marked her as an outcast. At its touch, the mark shimmered faintly and then dimmed, as though it were being swallowed by her skin. Daniel's eyes widened. He had seen dozens of outcasts before, but their marks never faded. They were burned into the flesh by the colony's justice. This was something else, something forbidden. The girl watched him, her voice barely above a whisper. "The mark is a lie," she said. "It hides who I am." Before Daniel could speak, the lead guardian turned its head toward him and let out a deep, vibrating tone that made the stone under his boots tremble. Another guardian stepped forward, holding a small, flat shard of black crystal. It extended the shard toward Daniel, not touching him, but clearly offering it. He took it carefully, feeling an odd pulse inside it, like a faint heartbeat. The girl's voice came again, stronger this time. "It's a key," she said. "My people sealed the last sanctuary before they died. That key is the only way in." Daniel's grip on the shard tightened, a sanctuary hidden, sealed, and now locked away behind myths and lies. If what she said was true, then bringing her here hadn't just saved her life, it had opened a door to something much bigger. The air grew heavier, the steam curling tighter around them. One of the guardians stepped back into the mist and disappeared without a sound. Daniel scanned the shadows, uneasy. "Why are they helping us?" he asked. The girl turned her face toward the water, her reflection rippling in the faint light. "Because," she said, "without me, the sanctuary stays closed forever, and without the sanctuary, your kind will die too." Daniel felt the weight of her words settle on him. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. If she was right, every step he had taken into this canyon had been the start of something far more dangerous, and there would be no turning back. The steam hung heavy in the air, muffling every sound except the slow drip of water from the canyon walls. Daniel sat beside the glowing pool, the black crystal shard resting in his palm. It felt warmer now, almost alive, pulsing in a rhythm that matched the beat of his heart. The girl's breathing was steady, her strength returning with every minute she spent in the mineral water. The lead guardian remained close, its glowing eyes fixed on her. Then, without warning, it reached into the water and brought out a small, sealed container. The object was ancient, its surface etched with symbols Daniel didn't recognize. The guardian placed it beside him and stepped back, disappearing into the mist, like a shadow dissolving at dawn. The girl's gaze followed the container, and her voice was steady when she spoke. "That's why they want me dead." Daniel frowned. "What's inside it?" She didn't look away from the object. "The cure," she said simply. "A cure for a sickness your people don't even know is coming. In less than a year, it will spread through the colonies. It will kill humans, and my kind alike. The sanctuary holds the last stores of the cure, but without me, it stays sealed, and the cure rots away." Daniel stared at the container, feeling the weight of what she had just revealed. This wasn't just a rescue, it was the beginning of a war for survival. And the people who had left her to die weren't just cruel. They were trying to erase the only hope the galaxy had left. The girl reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. "If you take me back to the colony, they will kill us both before we can reach the sanctuary," she said. "We have to go now farther than anyone has gone in years." Her eyes held no fear, only a fierce determination that didn't match the frailty of her body. Daniel slipped the shard into his jacket and picked up the container. His decision was already made. There was no way he could walk away now. The wind shifted, carrying faint sounds from the canyon entrance voices. Sharp and urgent, the enforcers had followed, and they were closer than he'd thought. The girl pushed herself up in the water, her strength surprising him. "If we stay, they'll surround us," she said. "But I know another way out, one the colony forgot." She glanced toward a narrow crack in the canyon wall, barely visible through the mist. Daniel didn't ask questions. He pulled her from the pool, wrapping her in his jacket. The warmth of the springs faded instantly, replaced by the biting chill of the canyon air. He knew whatever lay beyond that crack would be dangerous, but the alternative was walking straight into the hands of the people who wanted them both gone. And if what she said about the cure was true, the fate of more than just their lives was now on the line. Daniel moved quickly toward the crack in the canyon wall, his boots splashing through shallow streams that cut across the stone. The girl clung to him, her small frame hidden under his jacket. The glowing pools faded behind them, swallowed by the thick mist. Every step deeper into the narrow passage made the light dimmer, until the only glow came from the faint blue pulse of the crystal shard in his pocket. The walls closed in, until Daniel had to turn sideways to pass. The sound of pursuit was growing, boots striking rock, voices barking orders. The enforcers were coming fast. The girl pressed her face into his chest, her voice a whisper. "They won't stop, not until I'm gone." The passage opened suddenly into a hidden cavern. Steam rose from the floor in slow, curling waves. In the center stood a jagged stone arch, half buried in rubble. Ancient carvings ran along its surface, and as Daniel stepped closer, the shard in his pocket throbbed with heat. The girl's eyes lit with recognition. "That's the first door to the sanctuary," she said. "Once it's open, they can't follow us, only those the guardians allow." Shouts echoed through the narrow passage they'd just left. Daniel knew they had seconds. He pulled the shard free, its glow intensifying until it lit the cavern walls. The girl placed her trembling hands over his, guiding the crystal into a small depression at the base of the arch. A deep hum filled the air, the same sound the guardians had made, and the stone began to shift. The carvings glowed faintly, dust falling in thin streams as the arch cracked open. Beyond it lay nothing but blinding white light, warm and inviting. The girl's voice was firm now. stronger than he had heard it yet. Step through, and we'll be safe. Step through, and we can save them all. Daniel looked back just as the first enforcer burst into the cavern. Weapon raised. There was no time to think. He tightened his grip on the girl, stepped into the light, and the sound of the canyon vanished. For a heartbeat, there was nothing, no cold, no heat, just silence. Then the light faded, and they stood in a place unlike anything Daniel had imagined. Towering walls of living crystal, streams of pure water running through the floor, and air so fresh it felt like the first breath after drowning. The girl turned to him, her expression calm but unyielding. "This is where it begins," she said. Daniel didn't know if she meant their survival, the fight for the cure, or something even greater. But one thing was certain, he had been right not to leave her behind, and now there was no going back.